Trump is now talking about himself like he's a king, and he might want to think differently about that because kings don't have that sort of power and they often end up losing their heads. So, when the United States was created, the originators of their founding fathers were not interested in having a king. They didn't want to have a king. Not only did they not want to have a king, they didn't want to have somebody who was going to rule over them like a dictator. So they tried to structure it so there would be checks and balances. Now Trump has used executive orders, which he now apparently has this power to do, to wipe out the checks and balances. And his most recent declaration is only he or his attorney general can determine what is lawful out of his orders, which is ridiculous. But again, let's get back to this assertion now that he thinks he's the king. Well, kings don't have that kind of power. If you go to Britain and you think about King Charles, okay, what is his role? He doesn't dictate anything. He doesn't pass edicts, nothing along that line. The Parliament is what still has the ultimate power. The king is more or less ceremonial, and with respect to Parliament, the king might have discussions with the Prime Minister about things, but it's not even directing the government in any way, shape, or form. The king, in the end, signs the things into law after Parliament has done it. In Canada, we have something similar. You don't know who our Governor General is. Most people don't. The Governor General basically is the person who signs things into law. They basically have the position, the closest thing we've got to a president in Canada. The Prime Minister is responsible to Parliament. The Prime Minister, in fact, in our case, was pushed out of his position by his own party and Parliament, and of course his own decision making in the end. But still, nothing close to dictatorial power at all. Everything has to be run through Parliament. Everything is dealt with at the caucus level as well. So he's responsible to his own ministers. He's responsible to his party, and he's forced to answer. The Prime Minister is forced to answer questions in Parliament when Parliament's sitting. Rare occasion now that it's been prorogued. So this is a little bit exceptional. Think of Germany. You hear about the Chancellor all the time. You don't hear about the Bundespräsident. The Bundespräsident is somebody who's just picked, who is a person of good character, who occupies this position for a while, and they don't go run around, make edicts and things like that. Basically, what you want for one of these positions is you want somebody who's apolitical, who's not really interested in any agenda, and their whole goal is basically just to approve of what Parliament's dealing with, and in the rare occasion, if the legislature comes to them with a piece of legislation that's grossly unconstitutional, they could reject it. But it almost never happens because the legislature knows that this could happen and they don't want it to happen. In this case, the United States, without intending to do it, has given basically Trump and Musk dictatorial power. This was exactly what the framers of the Constitution did not want. This is what they were trying to avoid by creating these checks and balances. And now he's done away by virtue of edict with the checks and balances. This is abnormal, people. This is not normal anywhere in the world, and this is not even how a king behaves. If a king starts to behave like a dictator, then they've got a solution for him, right? They take care of him. But when it's a situation like this, there's still legal processes that can be dealt with to stop Trump and Musk from taking over and destroying the United States. But you should note, this is not democracy. This is not democracy, and the U.S. cannot claim any longer that it is a democracy when you've got somebody who is operating like a dictator, making edicts. It is no longer a democracy.